think you guys will start off with where you're at. We're at the webinar visual timelines, reporting skills PMs aren't taught but should be, and just some introductions before we get into the agenda and what we're going to cover today. My name is Jason Ratcliffe. I'm the founder of PM Place. So a little bit about us. We're an online community and we use school.com as our platform. We're a place that was created with the purpose of, it's kind of like a very advanced form of Reddit. If you're familiar, there's a lot of project management threads on Reddit. And I wanted a place like that where current and aspiring project managers could come to collaborate with each other, network with each other, learn, share advice, teach, all those kind of things. So it's really great for beginners all the way to advanced PMs and people just wanting to break into the field. Try to make that very, very broad and widely accessible for a wide range of people. And thanks to the platform we use on school.com, we're able to take it beyond just a forum. So that's the really cool part. We do have the general discussion area that's kind of like the Reddit type forum, where you can ask those things and share ideas. But there's also other sections in that community. So there's a classroom section that schools created, and we populate it with our own courses. So we have several courses on there, anything and everything project management related, hard skills, soft skills, how to get certified, beginner level to advanced level. So really nice feature there. You can kind of go through those courses at your own pace. And then we have a calendar section, which is really cool because we like to do live events. So we like to host study groups where members get together and study on a topic of their choosing, learn different PM softwares. We do live workshops. We've had just recently a project management fundamentals workshop all the way up to how to use AI in project management. So today's webinar is the first time that we've partnered up with another company to do a live event like this. And guys, I'm telling you, this is going to be awesome. The folks at Office Timeline have created a heck of a top-notch product, and they really know their stuff. And you can tell that they're in it to provide value to you all. All right, that's and the fact that they really know the ins and outs of the business makes it possible for them to do that. So I can't wait for you guys to see this. I know there's going to be a lot of things you take away from it today, tangible things that you can actually use in real life. This isn't just theoretical. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff. It's kind of getting ahead of myself, so I'll slow down for a minute on that. But at the end of the presentation, there will be a link for anybody here who wants to join us over at PM Place on School. It's completely free to join. You click the link, you get on there and set up your account, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you in there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eddie, and he's going to introduce himself and talk to us a little bit about Office Timeline.
All right. Thanks so much, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'm Eddie Malik. I am the founder of Office Timeline. I'll tell you a brief story about how this whole thing actually started. I was at Microsoft for about 15 years on different teams, anywhere from the Windows and Windows Server team to Azure, just before leading Azure to start Office Timeline. And I was also on the team that built Microsoft Teams. And in all the roles that I have, I was a PM. And at Microsoft, PM is like the jack of all trades, right? You're not just doing project management, you're doing a little bit of engineering, customer stuff, and all that. So I ran quite a few projects, and I always had to report up to the leadership team to talk about what the programs are doing. And I used to create all these project plans and timelines by hand. And so it would take me hours to do. And then when I'd present them, they'd present really well. Because I'd focus on a visual and a story to tell. And then people across the company would come and say, how'd you do that? Right? So if I'd present something, it might make its way over to some other team. And they would be so disappointed when I tell them that I made this by hand because they're like, gosh, that takes forever. So that's how I got the idea to start Office Timeline. And little did I know that the entire world had that problem. So the whole idea behind Office Timeline is to save you time, make you look like a professional, focus on the story and project management. And that's exactly what we've done. So I'm excited to show you a demo of it later today. Chris, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eddie. I joined the Office Timeline team about a year ago, and it's just been a real joy learning how this product has grown and evolved in a way that helps project managers take the complex data that we're dealing with every day and turning it into something that teams can actually use. So happy to be here today to help folks with their learning journey when it comes to Office Timeline.
All right. Good deal. So that's the crew for today. Kind of get into a little bit of the well, actually a few housekeeping things before we get to the agenda. So we are recording the session. We're going to make sure the playback is available afterwards. And when a question pops in your head, just put it in the chat box right away. I'm going to be kind of watching that as Eddie and Chris are presenting here. I'll try to make sure we catch every one of them. We'll try to make sure we're talking slow so everybody can hear us and understand us. But please, like we encourage, the engagement is what helps everyone ensure that you're getting the right value from this, right? We want to know what questions you have, just in general, and questions about anything that's discussed here or presented here. So please put those questions in the chat box. And we plan on running about 45 minutes. So depending on, how long Q&A goes. So make sure you stay tuned, because at the end, there's going to be some special access to some free project planning templates and a free trial of Office Timeline software. So make sure you stick around to be able to get your hands on those. And before we get into the agenda, I believe we have another poll coming up. Poll number 2. How do you currently handle project updates? So if you could just take a minute here and start answering that. How do you currently handle project updates?
Yeah, seeing folks answering there in email or chat threads. Yeah, we see a lot of that in our day-to-day, right?
Right.
And then, of course, just the ad hoc PowerPoint slides. Yeah, just making changes manually. Living in spreadsheets and MS Project. Yeah, so a good mix. It seems like folks are trying a little bit of everything to keep things updated.
Good deal. So while those are still coming in, I'll kind of briefly cover today's agenda. We've already got through the welcome and introductions. So next, Chris is going to talk to us about some very common and recognizable project management challenges that I know a lot of you are facing on a daily basis. And you're going to present a solution for that, right? Because that's the important part. And then we're going to go over, with Eddie's demo on how to create a visual timeline in just a matter of minutes. And we'll finish up with any Q&A that was missed during the presentation. So again, please put your questions in the chat box. And so they're all there and easy to go through, and we will make sure that we get to every single one of those if possible. So that is the agenda for the day, and I'm going to kick it over to Chris now, and he's going to talk to us about these huge problems that we all struggle with.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason. Yeah, thanks for the intro. Let's start the conversation with how our current project management tools are maybe falling short. Project managers, we're not circus performers, right? But we do juggle a lot. We're juggling shifting timelines. We're tracking as dependencies are changing. We are keeping an eye on resource availability and how that's evolving. But despite all the complexity that we're running into, our stakeholders are still expecting some clarity, right? That's the communication challenge that we're all facing. Taking all of those moving pieces and turning them into a clear, cohesive story. And unfortunately, it's not just one story, right? Every audience that you interact with needs something a little different. Executives want that high-level summary, just the big picture. They want to know what risks, pitfalls they might be running into. The team, they need detailed task level visibility so that they can stay on track. And then, of course, the clients, they're expecting professional, transparent updates that show how the project is progressing, making sure things are moving along. And so that really does present a real challenge for PMs. It's not just doing the work or getting the work done or pushing people along the way. It's tailoring that story for each of these audiences that we've identified. And it's often telling that story with tools that are disconnected. That's where the better visibility and communication tools like Office Timeline can really, really make a difference. So let's see, let me just make sure there we go. Yeah, so there are a ton of project management tools out there, right? And many of them, they're doing a decent job of what they were designed to do, right? Tracking tasks, tracking deadlines. Where they're falling short, I dare say, is in communication, especially when you are dealing with multiple audiences. So you have the exec team, the project team, and you got the client, among others. And they all need the different views of the same project. And most tools just aren't really built for that. So I'm going to break down for you where some of those gaps usually show up with some of the project management tools that we're using. For example, right off the top, no visual context, right? We have spreadsheets that are static, PM tools that only show you rows and columns, but it doesn't show the relationships. It doesn't show the dependencies. It doesn't really show what's happening in the big picture. And that makes it really hard to see how all the work connects, how a delay in one area might affect another area or the entire project. So along with that, another challenge that we run into is some of this being very hard to update, right? A lot of these updates, and I'm sure you guys can sympathize with this, and I've seen it in the polls, that a lot of these updates are manual and it's time consuming. It introduces errors. The more you have to update manual, the more errors you can possibly introduce. And oftentimes, by the time you've taken all of this sweet, precious time to change that information and get everything updated, the information is already outdated again. So that just puts more time sink into this project. And lastly, we have information overload. You can be left with really dense, detailed data that's hard to interpret. Again, those stakeholders, they want clarity, not a wall of numbers. They don't want to just look at a grid of numbers and letters. So without the right format, your stakeholders are going to be forced to dig through complexity just to understand what's happening. That's why communication is where a lot of the project management tools that we're using fall down. Not in tracking the work, that's what they're designed to do, and hopefully they're doing that correctly, but in turning it into insights that those different audiences that we mentioned can actually use them. And so we've been talking about that communication challenge, right? How project managers need to make sense of a lot of different moving pieces. And then we need to tailor that story for different audiences. And I'd love to say that is where Office Timeline comes in for you. Our goal is simple. It's to take those complex project plans that we're dealing with, that we're working in every day, and turn it into something that everyone can understand. Office Timeline is going to take that complex data, make it boardroom ready, transform it into clear visual narratives that kind of help you define the scope. It helps you align your team, and then it definitely helps you communicate effectively with executives. So you're covering that kind of broad spectrum of audiences that are looking at your data. And because it's built for business users and not designers, you can build timelines that look really pretty and really great to tell a great story without hours of work and also hours and hours of design know-how. So that being said, I'm sure you guys are excited to see how this actually works. So I'm going to hand things over to Eddie, who will take us through building a strong visual in just a few steps.
All right. So what I want to show you is how you can take data from an existing data source. So typically people always have data somewhere, right? In a project management tool or in your head. But first, I'm going to show you how you can get it out of your project management tool and into Office Timeline, and then to be able to update it. And then I will show you some cool new features that we've added that people have asked for quite a while, which is plan versus actual. So you want to tell the story of what do we say we were going to do and how are we doing against that plan, and to show regular updates on that. And then I'll show you how to build it from scratch if you've got the data in your head or an idea. And it looks like Project Excel Smartsheet are really the most used. So I'm going to start out with I think I'm going to start out with Microsoft Project because that inched above Excel a bit. But the process for importing is really the same because there's quite a few different tools that people are using, like ServiceNow and PlanView and Primavera. And all of those, the beauty of all that is you can export all your data into Excel and then import it into Office Timeline. So let me show you a really quick and easy way to turn your project data into a timeline. So this project plan here, I took this from Microsoft Project. So this was a template that ships with Project. And what I did was I added a few columns to it, swim lane, sub-swim lane, and this column called exec timeline. I just inserted a column that's text and put in yeses next to items that I want to put on my exec timeline. So basically, it's just a tag to import these items. And swim lanes and sub-swim lanes, it's a way to categorize all this data into a particular swim lane on the timeline. So let's see what that looks like. So I go to PowerPoint, I can go to Office Timeline and press New. And you can see there's an Import tab here, and there's an Import button here. So there's a few different ways to get to importing. So you can import from Project, and you get a wizard that will walk you through the import process. So we'll pick the file that I have open right there. And the first thing that we do is we load up a preview of what's in the file so we can map the columns. So Office Timeline knows which date columns to pick, the title, the swim lane, sub-swim lane, etc. And I've seen project columns, project files with 200 columns. So we allow you to map them. It's as simple as saying, hey, Office Timeline, this is my start date, or, this is my title, etc. Once you've mapped your columns in this particular view, we allow you to pick and choose which items you want to bring in. So you can bring in entire categories where you have different levels. So you can say, give me everything in level 2. Or what I like to do instead of cherry picking or picking from a particular level is I like to use the filter. And in the filter, we show you all of your columns that you have in Microsoft Project. And you can pick and choose which columns you want to filter on. So exec timeline equals yes. So that's the column that I had added earlier, if you recall, from Project, right? This column here, and it just filtered on these items. So we pick the file, we pick the columns and mapped swim lane, sub-swim lanes, title, start date, end date, and then we pick the items we want with the filter, and then I press import. And we'll read the file and turn it into a picture just like that. Now, our goal is to get you maybe 80% of the way there. So you still have to do some level of tweaking. So I just went to themes here by clicking on the themes button. And you can pick from a number of different themes. So you can kind of look at what your data looks like. And you can also create your own custom theme as well. So if you have Expert Edition, and themes is something we can talk about later if you guys have questions on it, but you can create your own custom themes to align the entire team and to have the right shapes and colors and date formats. But I'm going to pick the flow theme for a moment because I personally like that one. I actually made that one myself. That's why I like it probably. And then what I'll do is I'll make a few changes to this. So I'll go into edit timeline. And you see the text is kind of not quite right. So you have two options. You can extend the swim lane header here to make it a little wider to make room for that, or you can rotate this text if it fits. So, and then this date is kind of coming over here. I mean, that's not so bad. Sometimes the text can overlap, so I'll tell you what to do about that. You can move things around, move things above or to the side. I'll leave it there for now. And the other change I tend to make is to the time scale. So if you click on the time scale, you can go to time scale settings because on the style pane, it's very contextual. So if you click on a milestone, you'll see a milestone popping up here. If you click on time scale, you'll see those properties, right? So I'm going to change that to quarters, and I'll turn on the second one, so I have quarters and months, and hit save there. So Now I've imported this from Microsoft Project. I've given it a theme and styled it a little bit and didn't have to do a whole lot. And the beauty of this is now it's linked up with project. So if the project file changes, I can hit refresh and it will update the file. So let's go make some changes here. So let's say I'm going to change the title over there. Maybe I will change the duration to 60 days for that training piece. I will copy and add something. So I'll say a new item has arrived, and maybe we'll delete something. So we've deleted things, added things, renamed things, changed durations. And this time, all I have to do is I just press refresh. And you can see that we immediately scan the file. We go, hey, there's some differences on that slide. So the second row is a slide. And in your project file. So we'll highlight those changes too. So the title, duration changed here, which means the end date. We deleted something, we added something. So I'm going to add that new object. We don't automatically pick up new because you may have 50 new things. So you can just say, give me all the changes. And when you hit refresh, what you'll notice is we immediately made all those changes. So the title changed, the new item was added, something got deleted, some duration was changed. And it was as easy as that. So the other neat thing about this is that you can add your own content to it. So you're not just stuck with what you've imported. You can add your own some links. So let's say I wanted a marketing piece to it, and this is following all the color schemes from my theme that I have there. And so you can see how easy it is to add your own stuff. You can even customize and add things up at the top here, anywhere actually. You can reorder the swim lanes if you want to move them around just by dragging and dropping things. You can put items, if let's say I'm going to move the date to the right, title up above, and you can put items in a row. You can put milestones on top of tasks by snapping them. Flags will stick up like that, and stars will actually snap in the middle if you want them to, or above. So you can do all kinds of layout things once you've imported, and we'll remember those layout changes. So that, in a nutshell, is just the fundamentals of importing and synchronizing. And since we have Excel and Smartsheet people, before I show you active versus planned dependencies, I'm going to show you how to import from Smartsheet and from Excel. I'm going to go over to Smartsheet. So I have this insane plan here, and some of you guys probably, look like your plans probably look like this. There's so much going on. And so to turn this into a timeline by hand or using Smartsheet is quite difficult. So I'll show you how to do it with Office Timeline. It was the same trick, really, adding a swim lane column, but this time I added a drop-down column instead of just typing it in, so that way you don't make any typing mistakes and it's easier to pick. And then for the key timeline items, I actually inserted a check mark. So you can go to Insert Column and pick check mark and then pick a shape. And it's just a little more fun, but really it's a yes, no, 1, 0, whatever you want it to be. And so it's the same idea here, right? Is how do you turn this into a beautiful timeline? So go back into PowerPoint, Office Timeline. So I'll go to Import from Smartsheet. And I will look for that clinical plan that I have there. So I'll pick that one. And then same process, right? Mapping your different columns so we know we're bringing in the right data. And you can bring in dependencies from Smartsheet as well, but both the successor and predecessor have to be imported. So we've got our title, swim lane, start date, end date. We can also bring in dependencies, percentage complete if you have it. And if you notice, the check mark comes in as true or false. So that's how Smartsheet sends the data to us for a check mark. So, and again, there's 256 items. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to filter on key timeline item condition is true. and I will accept those changes. So it found 19 out of 256 items that I want to bring in, and we will bring in a timeline for you, right? So again, the same concept, which is update the time scale. So this one probably makes more sense in years and quarters, and you have some options on how you want to set this up, which is really nice. And then I like to apply a theme. Maybe for this particular one, I'll apply a different theme, maybe that one. And then, of course, in edit timeline, right, you have some options to rotate or move things around. So maybe I'll create a little bit of a gap here and move this up a bit. And so in this case, you can also move things around. So if things aren't ordered quite the way you want it to look like in Office Timeline, you can just move these up or down. And I'll put this kind of a bit more in chronological order here. And we will bring them in the same order that they are in your Smartsheet. And if you want to put things in a row, you can slowly drag them. But these are two different subswim lanes. That's why they're separate here. Okay, and I'll hit save. And so that's how easy it was, right, to turn. So it was a bit of pre-work on this side, but then to import it and to synchronize it, right, you just hit refresh. Extremely powerful. And the other beautiful thing is I want to show you here is once you've imported, you're not stuck with what you've imported. If you hit refresh, I had made some changes. So if you hit refresh, we will show you a different view. It says no updates have been detected. So now you can say, show me everything that is not imported. And you still have a filter here. And you can add more items to bring into your timeline by selecting them. Or you can also, by the same token, if you're looking at imported items, you can remove items as well. So you're certainly not stuck with what you've imported. You can add items, you can remove items. In this case, we brought in these two milestones. The titles are quite long, so I'm going to put them on the right and extend them so they're a bit longer. And then I'm going to move these dates to the left here. We have a little bug in the build that I've got where left date isn't there. So I'm just going to drag and drop the date here. So, in a nutshell, you can import, use swim lanes, subswim lanes, and tag the items. You can synchronize the data with a single click. You can add your own items to it. You can remove things that you've added. You can hide things that you've added. Lots of flexibility. So I'm just going to pause and see, Chris, are there any questions before I show Excel and then move on to plan versus actual?
Yeah, actually, would you mind showing once more activating dependencies and critical paths?
Okay.
I'd be interested there. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we can move into that. If you go to Edit Timeline, under Advanced Tools, we have this kind of little onboarding thing that shows you, hey, how you can do different things. So you can turn on Plan versus Actual. You saw that the baselines just got generated. And you can turn on Dependencies as well. And so so when you do that, right, that's when you click on an object, you now have the ability to create dependencies. And we support all 4 types of dependencies. So let's say that when development starts, testing can start, right? That's a start-to-start dependencies. When testing, if I click on testing, when testing finishes, we can start the deployment. And, maybe we can add another one. Maybe I'll say that when scoping is done, development can start. So we've created a dependency path here. And let me save that first so you can see what it looks like. So you can see that this is the baseline, which is the dark colors here, and the red one I'll talk about in a moment. We have our dependency line. So we have a finish to start, start to start, finish to start. And what's also nice about these dependencies is that they're actual dependencies that enforce dates. So if you move things around, you'll see that I've eaten up all the slack here. Now things are shifting. And actually, let me do this. Let me delete the one that I created just so it's easier to see what I'm doing there. So the scoping part took too long. and it pushed out the development, testing, and deployment. And you can see the original baselines turned red. But for the baselines for these other items, training and documentation and pilot, those kind of stay the same. So I'm just going to turn those off. So you can choose which baselines, planned versus actual, right? So which planned items you want to show, which ones you don't. And you can see how dependencies can really be helpful in doing kind of what if scenarios or showing what happens if things get done early. And if things get done early, you can see the bar turns green. And in this case, the bar will turn green. We've got a minor update to make to the product where all the bars turn green on the visual here as well. But and I'll hit save here. But you can see that as I move things around, the planned items stay put and the actuals move. And then you can see that we got done early or we got done late. Usually the variance is not so much. It tends to be a bit more like, things took a little bit longer than we expected here, but we were able to make up for that lost time in testing, and deployment still kind of happened on time. So you can represent that story by just dragging and dropping this. And not only that, you can also drag and drop the variance bar or the baseline here. So you can see I can move the baseline around and it shows you the date and the duration. And if you're data oriented, you go to edit time, edit data. And what you'll notice is we have a planned start and a planned end, actual start, actual end. So you can manipulate the planned items here. So even on imported items, you can still have your actuals imported from project, and they can add your planned manually. We don't have the ability to import planned from Excel project yet. We're working on Excel first. So we'll import planned versus actual from Excel, and then we'll likely add it to project later. So that's how planned versus actual and dependencies work. Okay, any other questions on that before I switch over to Excel? Because I want to show you something in Excel as well.
So you're good to continue, Eddie, just answering some questions here in the chat.
Okay, so we had a lot of people using Excel. The reason I want to show Excel as well is that any tool, whether it's Monday or Google Sheets or Clarizen or PlanView, you can always export to Excel. And then from Excel, you can import into Office Timeline. And so Excel kind of is like the one that's the golden standard, right? And so here I've got 100 different items. And the way I created this data set, actually, I wanted to tell you this tip, is I asked Copilot to make a project plan for me that included swim lanes and sub-swim lanes and make a pharma timeline. And it just made all this stuff for me. So I didn't have to think about any of this. I even said, hey, find the most relevant items that should be on a timeline and mark them with a yes. So I've done a lot of experiments with Copilot in Excel, with ChatGPT, with DeepSeek, and others. And they all do a fantastic job, Gemini as well. And you can feed it your data set and say, add swim lanes and sub-swim lane columns for me, automatically categorize it for me, and tell me which items should be on a timeline. And it will format your data in this way. It's so brilliant. So it's even more time savings. I'll show you that if we have some time. But let me import this. The one key thing about Excel is you do want to have a unique ID. So the reason for that, it's a fingerprint. So we know exactly what's happening with each row. So if I import from Excel, which is a 5-year pharma plan there, you pick your sheet. We only have one sheet there. And then the same process that you're familiar with, title, start date, end date, would automap it, but I'm going to unmap notes. And maybe I don't want percentage complete either. I think the key thing in Excel, by the way, I should go back one. There's a learn more, the row ID. I won't spend too much time on it, but essentially it's the unique ID. Every project management tool has it. Excel is the only tool that doesn't have a row ID. That's why we ask you to provide it. And your tool, when you export, you can provide it. Okay, so we've got our stuff here. I'm going to go back to the filter and say timeline item equals yes, and bring all those items in and import that. So we turn that Excel spreadsheet into this. So I'm going to move it up a little bit. And I'm going to go into edit timeline and extend this a bit. We're going to automate this, by the way. It's on our roadmap. So pretty soon you will not have to do anything with the swim lane header, but we'll do that. And then if you have your own custom theme, what's really cool is you can actually set yours as default. And that way, when you import it, always imports it into that. Maybe for this one, like that one. So I'll choose that one there. Okay, so that's how we import it from Excel. And of course, you can refresh the same experience that you have before. So just keep that in mind, right? And since we have a little bit of time, here's what I have to do. I'll say create a project plan for a construction project. I misspelled, that's okay. AI is super smart. That spans 2 years and includes swim lanes and sub-swim lanes. And add about 25 items. Milestones, and costs. If you just do that, it is quite smart in Excel. It will actually go and create the project plan itself with the right columns and the right drop downs and status updates. I didn't ask it to add a task ID, but Excel knows that task ID is always problematic for project plans, so it automatically added it. I didn't ask it to do dependencies or all these other things. And what's really fascinating is it's quite accurate. So I did a DeepSeek version of this with ChatGPT, and it shows me that it actually does a bunch of research on the industry and the topic that you're in, and it will make sure that it's truly accurate and that the categories are right and the fundamentals are right. So if you don't get good results in Excel, you can always go to ChatGPT, do a deep research on it. And when you do the deep research, you can tell it to give it to you in CSV format or Excel format. I haven't tried Excel, I've done CSV, and then you download it. Okay, so you see, I'll keep that. And so it's fantastic. I've got a title, swim lane, sub-swim lane, start date, end date. I'm going to copy that. You can, of course, import this, but I'm going to copy this and start from scratch this time. And I will delete this empty row and hit this tiny little paste button. And what you see is we get a timeline here that you can start to make your own, right? So you can start to customize things and add your own milestones to it. So there's tricks that you learn to say, to mix in more milestones, right? I want you to add milestones to the top. And you can say, give me milestones that are not placed in swim lanes that are very key items that should be here. And then I think you can also tell it to create dependencies. We don't import yet dependencies from Excel, but eventually we will, I hope, right? I mean, it's just like, wow. So we're planning on doing all of this, integrating it all into Office Timeline eventually, but until then, you've got Copilot, you've got ChatGPT. ChatGPT is free, Copilot's a paid license. Okay, and now we've used up quite a bit of time, so we're doing a time check. Chris, do we have time to show starting from scratch, or?
I think we might want to just leave some time for some Q&A and wrap up. I think we're almost at that time mark.
30 seconds on starting from scratch.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Press new, start from scratch. My favorite thing to do, go to edit timeline, add a bunch of milestones and tasks, add swim lanes and sub-swim lanes, right? And then you can start to do your dependencies, and it's saying, hey, don't allow conflicts on this. So no, I don't want conflicts. And then you can add some milestones and tasks, and it will follow your theme. And it's literally that easy. And you saw me copy and paste this as well. You can double click and say, put that from 26, right? So it's literally that easy. And you've already seen the copy and paste that I did from Excel, and you create it, and you get your timeline from scratch. You can always export it to Excel, so you can put it into your project management tool. You can copy and paste the data. You can copy and paste the picture. So that's my 30 seconds on starting from scratch.
Thanks so much, Eddie. Good. Already seeing great comments. Opening tickets with Service Desk to get in the latest guild. Thank you. A lot of thank yous. Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Eddie, for showing starting from scratch was a value. Okay, getting a lot of thank yous, folks. We're going to send a lot of stuff out to you, and there's always places to reach out to us if you have questions, and we're running short on time. So, Jason, I'll throw it over to you while I throw out one more poll. And in fact, I'll just take it from here, folks. Couple things you might want to look out for are the free download. We have video tutorials, so please check out our website for learning videos, articles, step-by-step tutorials, etc. Free templates that I mentioned in the chat that we'd be providing, as well as resources from PM Play so that you can follow along, join those learning, and check out the YouTube channel. Folks, if there's no more burning questions, I want to say thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Jason, for being here and helping facilitate this learning. Like I said, we're going to send out the recording as well as a ton of party favors and goodies for you guys to sink your teeth into as you are getting started in Office Timeline or expanding your journey. Thank you, everyone. Have a great Wednesday and a great rest of your week. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.